Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an accountant at a mid-sized firm here in Denver, Colorado. I've always been the responsible one in my family. You know, the one who pays her bills on time, saves for retirement, checks her credit score religiously. But that Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., when my phone started buzzing with a call from Wells Fargo, my entire world came crashing down in ways I never could have imagined. Ms. Thompson? The voice on the other end was professional but stern. This is David from Wells Fargo Home Lending. We need to discuss your mortgage account ending in 4782. You're currently 90 days past due, and we need to arrange payment immediately to avoid foreclosure proceedings. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I don't have a mortgage with Wells Fargo. I rent an apartment. There was a pause. Ma'am, according to our records, you co-signed on a $280,000 mortgage for a property at 1247 Maple Grove Drive in Aurora. The loan was originated 18 months ago. My blood ran cold. I'd never even heard of Maple Grove Drive, let alone signed anything for a house there. But David proceeded to read off my full name, my social security number, my date of birth. Everything was correct except for one crucial detail. I had never, ever signed a mortgage document in my life. What would you do if you discovered your name was being used without your permission on a debt you never agreed to? Because what I found out next would make your worst family nightmare look like a Disney movie. After hanging up with David, my hands were literally shaking as I pulled up my credit report. There it was, clear as day, a mortgage for $280,000 that I supposedly co-signed. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I scrolled through the report, I discovered 3 credit cards I'd never opened, all maxed out, all in default. My credit score had plummeted from 780 to 520 without me knowing it. I immediately called my parents. My mom answered on the second ring, her voice unusually cheerful for 6:30 in the morning. Sarah, how are you, honey? Mom, I just got a call from Wells Fargo about a mortgage I supposedly co-signed. Do you know anything about this? The silence that followed lasted about 10 seconds too long. Oh, that, she finally said, her tone shifting. Honey, it's just a little mistake. Madison needed help getting approved for her house, and you know how proud we are that she's finally achieving her dream of home ownership. Mom, did you just say what I think you said? Did Madison use my information without asking me? Sarah, don't be so dramatic. You're family. Sometimes family helps each other out. Madison fully intended to tell you about it, but you've been so stressed with work lately, and we didn't want to burden you with more paperwork. Burden me with paperwork? They just burdened me with nearly $300,000 in debt and destroyed my credit score, but somehow telling me about it would have been the real burden? Mom, this is identity theft. This is fraud. I could lose my job over this if my company finds out my credit is ruined. Oh, Sarah, you're overreacting like you always do. It's not that serious. Madison is making the payments. Except clearly, Madison wasn't making the payments, because I'd just been told the mortgage was 90 days behind. I hung up and immediately called my sister Madison. The phone went straight to voicemail, her cheerful voice telling me to leave a message after the beep. I left 3 messages. She didn't call back. By 8 a.m., I was sitting in my car outside my parents' house. I'd taken a sick day from work, something I'd done maybe twice in 5 years, but this couldn't wait. When I walked through their front door without knocking, something I'd done my entire life, the atmosphere felt different. Tense. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table with Madison, like they'd been waiting for me. Madison looked guilty, but not apologetic guilty. More like caught with her hand in the cookie jar, guilty. Sarah, sit down. My dad said in that tone he used when I was 12 and had broken something valuable. I'll stand, thanks. I want to know exactly what happened and how we're going to fix it. Madison finally spoke up. Look, Sarah, I needed a cosigner to get approved for the house. Your credit was perfect, and it's not like you were using it for anything important. Not using it for anything important? I'd been saving up to buy my own place. I'd been planning to apply for a mortgage within the next 6 months. But apparently my financial future wasn't important. Madison, you committed a felony. You forged my signature on legal documents. You used my social security number without permission. Do you understand that? God, Sarah, you're being so dramatic. It's just paperwork, and I am making the payments, she said, though her eyes darted away when she said it. Then why did Wells Fargo call me this morning about being 90 days behind? That was just a temporary cash flow issue. I had some unexpected expenses. My mother jumped in. Sarah, Madison bought that house for her family. Little Emma and Jake finally have their own bedrooms. Are you really going to destroy that over some paperwork? Some paperwork. They were calling the destruction of my credit score some paperwork. My father, who had been quiet until now, leaned back in his chair. Sarah, I'm disappointed in your reaction here. Family sticks together. Your sister needed help, and sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. Sacrifices? I could feel my voice getting higher. You made a sacrifice using my credit without asking me? How is that your sacrifice to make? We raised you to be generous and family-oriented, Mom said. This attitude you're showing right now, this selfishness, it's not who we raised you to be. And there it was. The classic manipulation that had worked on me my entire life. Anytime I stood up for myself, I was being selfish. Anytime I questioned their decisions that affected me, I was being ungrateful. Anytime I set a boundary, I was forgetting what family means. Madison pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm texting the family group chat to let everyone know what's happening here. What exactly are you telling them? I asked. That you're refusing to help your sister keep her house and that you're threatening to press charges over a simple misunderstanding. I watched her type, and I realized in that moment that this wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was a calculated decision made by my entire immediate family, and they had a backup plan for when I found out. They were going to turn the rest of the family against me, paint me as the villain who was willing to destroy Madison's children's home over technicalities. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins. Sarah, please reconsider. Think about Emma and Jake. Family comes first. Can't you work something out? Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one of them acknowledged that what had been done to me was wrong. They'd all been fed Madison's version of events, where I was the heartless sister who discovered her generous co-signing and was now backing out and threatening to ruin everything out of spite. I looked around the kitchen table at my parents and my sister, and I realized that in their minds, I wasn't a separate person with my own rights and my own financial future. I was a resource to be used when convenient. My credit score, my social security number, my legal identity. It was all just family property to be deployed as needed. I need time to think about this, I said finally. Don't take too long, Madison said, not looking up from her phone. I need to know if you're going to cooperate or if I need to make other arrangements. Cooperate? Like I was the one being unreasonable. I left their house and sat in my car for 20 minutes, just trying to process what had happened. Then I drove home, and that's when I saw it, sitting on my desk in my home office, exactly where I'd left it after graduation 3 years ago. It was a pen. Not just any pen, but the Mont Blanc pen my father had given me when I graduated with my accounting degree. It was engraved with the words Sarah Thompson CPA and the date of my graduation. When he'd given it to me, he'd said something that now felt like the cruelest irony imaginable. Sarah, he'd said, holding the pen box in both hands, this is for signing all the important documents in your life. But remember what I taught you. Never sign anything you don't understand. Your signature is your bond, your promise, your word. Protect it. I picked up that pen and held it in my hands, remembering that moment, remembering how proud he'd looked, remembering how safe I'd felt, knowing my parents had taught me to be responsible and careful, and now I realized that while they'd been teaching me to protect my signature, they'd been planning to forge it. The pen became something more than just a writing instrument in that moment. It became a symbol of everything I'd lost, my trust in my family, my financial security, my sense of safety in the world, but it also became something else. It became a reminder of what I'd been taught, what I believed in, and what I was going to fight for. I had no idea yet that this pen, this symbol of the promise they'd broken, would become the weapon I'd use to take back everything they'd stolen from me. But first, I had to figure out exactly how deep this betrayal went. because something told me the mortgage and the credit cards were just the beginning, and I was right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Madison's reaction when I'd asked about making payments, the way her eyes had darted away, the phrase temporary cash flow issue, the fact that she'd had unexpected expenses serious enough to cause her to miss 3 months of mortgage payments. At 2 a.m., I got up and started going through every financial document I had: bank statements, credit reports, tax returns. And that's when I found the first real clue that this was bigger than just one mortgage. There was a credit monitoring alert I'd missed from 6 months ago. It mentioned a new account being opened, a business credit line. I'd assumed it was a mistake and ignored it, but now I pulled up the full report. Sarah Thompson was listed as the guarantor on a $50,000 business line of credit for Madison's Consulting Services LLC. I'd never heard of Madison's consulting business. I'd never guaranteed anything, but there was my signature, or at least something that looked like my signature, on the application. My sister hadn't just stolen my identity for her house. She'd stolen it to start a business, and judging by the default notices, that business wasn't going very well either. I sat there in my living room at 2 a.m. holding my father's pen, and I realized that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. They hadn't made a desperate decision to help Madison buy a house. They'd made a calculated decision to use me as their personal credit line, and they'd been doing it for months without telling me, but they were about to learn something about the responsible, careful daughter they'd raised. I was about to become very irresponsible with their secrets and very careless with their reputation. Because that pen my father gave me, I was going to use it to sign some documents they definitely wouldn't want me to sign. The next morning, I called in sick to work again and made my first appointment with a lawyer. Jennifer Martinez came highly recommended for identity theft cases, and when I walked into her downtown office at 9 a.m. sharp, I brought everything, every document, every credit report, every piece of evidence I could find. Jennifer was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, and she didn't waste time with pleasantries. She spread my documents across her conference table and studied them with the intensity of a detective examining a crime scene. "Sarah," she said after 20 minutes of silence, "this isn't just identity theft. This is systematic financial fraud. And it's been going on for at least 2 years. 2 years? My stomach dropped, but I only found out yesterday." She pointed to a document I'd never seen before, a credit card application dated 18 months earlier. "Look at this signature. Now look at your real signature on your driver's license." I compared them side by side. The forgery was good, but not perfect. The S in Sarah was slightly different, and my real signature had a small flourish at the end that the fake one lacked. "Here's what I think happened," Jennifer continued. "Someone in your family has been practicing your signature. They probably started small, maybe a credit card or two, to test whether you'd notice. When you didn't catch it, they got bolder. The mortgage was just the most recent and largest theft." She pulled out another document. "This business credit line? It was opened 8 months ago. And look at this. There's a pattern of cash advances that suggests someone was using this credit to cover payments on the earlier debts." "You mean they were using new stolen credit to pay for old stolen credit?" "Exactly. It's a house of cards, and it was always going to collapse eventually. The only question was whether you'd find out before or after they'd completely destroyed your financial life." Jennifer leaned back in her chair. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Is there any possibility, any at all, that you signed these documents and forgot? Maybe you were under stress, or maybe someone convinced you to sign something you didn't fully understand." I thought about it for a long moment, then pulled out my father's pen from my purse. "My dad gave me this when I graduated. He told me to never sign anything I don't understand. I've lived by that rule my entire adult life. I read every word of every contract, every terms of service, every legal document. I would never, ever co-sign for something without understanding exactly what I was agreeing to." "And you're absolutely certain you never signed any of these?" "I'm positive. But more than that, look at the dates." I pointed to the mortgage paperwork. "This signature is dated March 15th, 2023. I was in London that entire week for a work conference. I have plane tickets, hotel receipts, credit card statements showing I was out of the country. Jennifer's eyebrows went up. That's what we call an alibi, and it's going to be very difficult for your family to explain how you signed a document in Colorado while you were 5,000 miles away. She started taking notes rapidly. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're filing a police report for identity theft and forgery. Second, we're going to contact every creditor and put fraud alerts on all these accounts. Third, we're going to demand forensic analysis of these signatures. And fourth, we're going to find out exactly who had access to your personal information. What do you mean, who had access? Think about it, Sarah. Someone needed your social security number, your date of birth, your address history, your employment information. This level of detailed personal information usually comes from someone close to you. Over the next week, Jennifer and I built our case methodically. We contacted the bank that had processed the mortgage, and they agreed to pull the security footage from the day the documents were signed. We also discovered something that made my blood boil. The notary public who had witnessed Madison's signature was actually a friend of my mother's from church. When we interviewed the notary, Mrs. Henderson, she seemed genuinely shocked to learn that I had never been present for the signing. But Madison told me you were her sister and that you'd already reviewed all the documents, Mrs. Henderson said nervously. She showed me an ID with your name on it. What did this person look like who claimed to be me? Jennifer asked. Well, she was blonde like Madison, about the same height. I just assumed, Madison said you were twins. Madison and I weren't twins. We weren't even close in age. She was 3 years older than me. But we did look similar, and Madison had been blonde since high school. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just about forged signatures. Someone had actually impersonated me in person. When Jennifer subpoenaed the bank's security footage, we hit the jackpot. There was Madison, clear as day, sitting across from a loan officer. And sitting next to her was someone I didn't recognize at first. A blonde woman about my age, wearing clothes similar to what I might wear to a business meeting. Do you know who that is? Jennifer asked, pausing the video. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then gasped. That's my cousin Rebecca, Madison's best friend since childhood. The pieces were falling into place. Rebecca, who was about my height and build, had impersonated me at the bank. Madison had coached her on my personal information, and my parents had provided their blessing and support for the entire scheme. But the most damning evidence came when we analyzed the IP addresses from the online credit card applications. Every single fraudulent application had been submitted from the same computer, a laptop registered to Madison Thompson. Jennifer spread out a timeline on her conference table. Here's what happened. 2 years ago, someone in your family decided to start using your credit. They started small, maybe a credit card for a few $1,000s. When you didn't notice, they got bolder. They opened more cards, then a business line of credit, and finally, the mortgage. But why didn't I notice earlier? Because they were smart about it. Look at the addresses on these accounts. They're all variations of your sister's address. The statements were going to her house, not yours. They were making minimum payments to keep the accounts in good standing, at least initially. It was only when Madison's financial situation got desperate that they stopped making payments entirely. That afternoon, I got a call from my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. Sarah, honey, your mother called me crying. She said you're threatening to press charges over some family financial arrangement. Surely you can work this out without involving lawyers and police. Aunt Linda, did Mom tell you that Madison forged my signature on a $280,000 mortgage without my knowledge or consent? There was a long pause. She said there was some confusion about paperwork, but that you had agreed to help Madison with her house. I never agreed to anything. I found out when the bank called me about missed payments. My credit score has been destroyed, and I've discovered this has been going on for 2 years. Oh my God, Sarah, I had no idea. Your mother made it sound like you were being unreasonable about some family arrangement you'd forgotten about. There's no arrangement I forgot about, Aunt Linda. This is identity theft, and it's a felony. After I hung up, I realized that my parents had been working overtime to control the narrative. They'd called extended family members with a carefully crafted story that made me look like the villain while conveniently omitting the criminal nature of what Madison had done. That night, I decided it was time to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I called Madison directly. This time, she answered. Sarah, I'm so glad you called. I've been thinking about our conversation and I think there might be a way to work this out. Really? Tell me more. Well, what if I put you on the deed to the house? That way, you'd actually own part of the property, so it wouldn't just be debt, it would be an investment. The audacity was breathtaking. She was trying to solve the crime of forging my signature by having me sign more documents to make the forgery retroactively legitimate. Madison, do you understand that what you did is a crime? Oh, come on, Sarah. Crime is a really strong word. It was more like a family arrangement that we should have communicated better. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. You had Rebecca impersonate me at the bank. These aren't communication issues, Madison. These are felonies. There was silence on the other end of the line. You know about Rebecca? I know about everything. The security footage, the IP addresses, the timeline. I know this has been going on for 2 years, and I know you've been using new credit to pay old credit while lying to everyone about making payments. Sarah, please. Think about Emma and Jake. Think about what this will do to them if their mom goes to jail. You should have thought about Emma and Jake before you decided to commit multiple felonies, Madison. What do you want? Money? I can pay you back. With what money, Madison? You're 3 months behind on a mortgage you couldn't afford. You've maxed out multiple credit cards and your business credit line is in default. Where exactly is this payback money going to come from? I'm working on some new business opportunities. Madison, I'm done. My lawyer is filing criminal charges on Monday morning. You have until then to decide whether you want to cooperate or fight this. What do you mean, cooperate? Full confession. Written acknowledgement of what you did. Agreement to take full financial responsibility for all fraudulent accounts. And a public apology to the family for lying to them about what really happened. And if I don't, then we'll see you in court, and you can explain to a jury why you thought stealing your sister's identity was a reasonable family arrangement. The following Monday morning, Jennifer and I walked into the Denver Police Department to file formal charges. Detective Rodriguez took our statement and reviewed our evidence with the kind of thoroughness that told me he'd seen cases like this before. Family identity theft is more common than people think, he said, but this is one of the most sophisticated cases I've seen. The level of planning and coordination suggests this wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a deliberate, long-term fraud scheme. What happens next? I asked. We'll obtain warrants for the computer records and bank accounts. We'll interview the notary and your cousin Rebecca, and we'll bring your sister in for questioning. That afternoon, my phone exploded with calls from family members. Madison had apparently told everyone that I was pressing criminal charges, but she was still sticking to her story that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. My mother called first. Sarah Elizabeth Thompson, how dare you call the police on your own sister? What is wrong with you? Mom, what's wrong with me is that I was raised to believe that stealing is wrong and forgery is a crime. Apparently, those lessons didn't apply to Madison. This is going to destroy our family. No, Mom. Madison destroyed our family when she decided to steal my identity. I'm just refusing to let her destroy my life, too. My father called an hour later. His approach was different, disappointed rather than angry. Sarah, I never thought I'd see the day when one of my daughters would try to send the other to prison over money. Dad, this isn't about money. This is about the fact that you raised me to believe that family members don't steal from each other. And then you helped Madison steal from me for 2 years. We didn't help her steal anything. We just didn't think you'd mind helping your sister achieve her dreams? You didn't think I'd mind having my financial future destroyed without my knowledge or consent? It wasn't supposed to go this far. Madison was supposed to handle the payments. But she didn't handle the payments, did she, Dad? And when I found out, instead of being horrified that your daughter had committed multiple felonies using my identity, your first instinct was to pressure me to let it slide. There was a long pause. What do you want from us, Sarah? I want you to stop pretending this was anything other than what it was. A crime. I want you to stop telling family members that I'm being unreasonable. And I want you to understand that the daughter you raised to be honest and responsible is doing exactly what you taught her to do. Thursday afternoon, I was at work when Jennifer called with an update. Sarah, you need to sit down for this. We just got the forensic analysis back on those signatures, and it's even worse than we thought. What do you mean? The signatures aren't just forgeries, they're tracings. Someone used software to create perfect copies of your signature from a source document, then printed them onto the paperwork. This wasn't someone practicing your signature by hand. This was sophisticated digital forgery. How is that possible? Do you remember signing anything for your family in the past few years? A birthday card, a family photo, anything that might have had your signature on it? I thought back, and then it hit me. Last Christmas, Madison asked me to sign a family photo for my grandmother. She said Grandma wanted all the grandchildren's signatures on a picture for her memory book. That's it! They scanned your signature from that photo and used it to create digital templates for forging documents. The premeditation was staggering. They'd been planning this for over a year, collecting my signature, coordinating with Rebecca, setting up business entities, all while acting like the loving family they'd always been. That evening, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. I didn't call ahead because I wanted to see their natural reaction when I told them what I'd discovered. When I walked in, they were having dinner with Madison and the kids. It was almost surreal, this picture of family normalcy while the adults at the table were actively covering up multiple felonies. "Sarah," my mother said with forced cheer, "what a nice surprise. Are you here to tell us you've changed your mind about this whole misunderstanding?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, pressing record. "I'm here to tell you that the FBI Forensics Lab has confirmed that the signatures on all the fraudulent documents are digital forgeries created from the family photo I signed last Christmas." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Madison went pale. My mother's fake smile disappeared completely. "I'm also here to tell you that Rebecca has been arrested and is cooperating with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence." This was a bluff. We hadn't arrested Rebecca yet, but I wanted to see their reaction. Madison immediately broke. "Sarah, please, I'll do anything. I'll pay everything back. I'll take full responsibility. Just please don't let this destroy my family." "Your family, Madison? What about my family? What about the family that raised me to believe we didn't steal from each other?" My father finally spoke. "Sarah, what do you want us to do? We can't undo what's been done." I reached into my purse and pulled out the Mont Blanc pen he'd given me at graduation. "Dad, do you remember what you told me when you gave me this pen?" He nodded slowly. "You told me to never sign anything I don't understand. You told me my signature was my bond, my promise, my word. You told me to protect it." I held up the pen so everyone could see it. "Well, I'm about to use this pen to sign some documents. I'm signing a victim impact statement. I'm signing a civil lawsuit for damages, and I'm signing an affidavit detailing every lie you've told to our extended family about what really happened here." Madison started crying. "Sarah, please, think about Emma and Jake." "I am thinking about them, Madison. I'm thinking about what kind of lesson they're learning when their mother steals from family members and their grandparents help cover it up. I'm thinking about what kind of adults they'll become if they learn that crimes don't have consequences, as long as you're related to the victim." I stood up from the table and looked around at my family, really looked at them. These people who had raised me, who had taught me right from wrong, who had been the foundation of my moral understanding of the world. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide how this plays out," I said. "Madison can accept full responsibility and work with my attorney to make restitution, or we can let the courts decide. But either way, the truth is coming out." As I walked toward the door, my mother called after me. "Sarah, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll lose your family over money." I turned around one last time. "Mom, I didn't lose my family over money. You lost your daughter when you decided that my financial future was worth sacrificing for Madison's dreams. The family I thought I had, the one that taught me honesty and integrity, that family never existed. You just got better at hiding who you really were." I walked out of that house carrying my father's pen, and I knew I was walking out of their lives forever. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The next morning, Jennifer called me with news that changed everything. "Sarah, Madison's attorney contacted me this morning. She wants to make a deal.